are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 176 of the College Loop Podcast. I am Dylan Larck, Hey Boy Tank on Twitter. No Harrison Tar today, but we do have Jacob Hillman, one of the many voices of the Auburn Sports Network. Hillman, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's been a busy month or so of crossover season, and it was another big weekend that ended on a high note, so hard to beat it.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and get started with Auburn Basketball, who have officially clinched the 4th seed in the SEC tournament and we'll start off with the Georgia game, after absolutely dismantling the Bulldogs right there on senior night by a score of 92-78 behind the 21-point performance from Denver Jones, who did not score a single point that was not behind the three-point line. Just an awesome performance from Denver Jones.
Well, and you look at that, and it's something that's been kind of building up to that point for a few games now. He scored in double figures for, I think, 5 straight games now, and that was the tie for his career high in three-pointers made. It was a year ago this past Monday, that he scored his career high in points at FIU, 30 points against, I think it was Rice, back in 2023. So it feels like he just kind of gets in that rhythm late in the season and really finds his shot. And he definitely did that on Saturday against Georgia. And obviously, it's something that is a really good thing to see if you're an Auburn fan. It's not something that you've seen from a player since a la Bryce Brown or I guess you could say Jabari Smith in a way. He did that against Vanderbilt back in 2022, but he did it in a different way throughout that season. Whereas Denver Jones, he's a volume shooter. You know what you're getting out of him and what he's capable of if he gets hot like he was Saturday.
Yeah, and looking at the entire team, you had with Denver Jones, you had 4 Tigers scoring double-digit points. You had every single rotational piece score at least 3 points, with Chris Moore putting up 1 shot and making that 1 shot as well. And I'm glad to see reliable points from Chris Moore. I think ever since the Leor Berman injury, we've seen the best side of Chris Moore that we've seen thus far this year, at least effort-wise, and just the confidence is really there for Chris Moore.
Well, that's what Coach Pearl talked about when he mentioned that Semo was going to get more playing time due to the injury to Leor. And it's really about the confidence on the offensive end. He's capable. He can make those three-point shots. He can grab offensive rebounds and go right back up with them. But, yeah, most importantly, just being confident when he does that, because we have seen some shots that he's taken this year just not look great. And in his last 2 games at Missouri and against Georgia, he's looked solid offensively. He's not doing too much. He's doing what he's asked of. And we obviously know the effort and the intensity he brings on the defensive end. That's the positives he brings for sure. But now that he can add positives on the offensive end, that's a big playing card you have with Chris Moore.
Yeah, and again, just looking at this team as a whole, I mean, there's very few weak points, I would say, a player like personnel-wise. I think this team does have a lot of, and we'll get into the SEC tournament in a second, but this team does have remnants of what you want to see from a national championship contender, and the fact that whatever this team plays on, they're one of the hardest teams to beat if they are even able to be beaten. Because I don't think we've seen the best version of this team lose, which that's a kind of a oxymoron to say that, because I don't think you see a lot of best teams losing. But you have Chad Baker-Mazara, you have Jay Will, you have Janai Broome all starting, and you have the three bigs right there. You have Denver Jones, who whenever he's able to find his stroke, he won't miss. He shot 7 for 9 from the 3-point line. And then you're just kind of waiting to see who emerges between Aiden Holloway and Trey Donaldson whenever they get in with their minutes. Aiden Holloway had 21 and Trey had 19, and they both combined for 11 points. Really, the point guard position is where you just need to find consistency. And that's really all you're missing on this team.
Well, and I think what we saw yesterday was the consistency in the playmaking. Obviously, you didn't have the scoring numbers that you might want from your point guard or a guy like Aiden Holloway, who we know has a 3-point shot like Denver Jones. And Trey Donaldson, obviously, he's a big, fast-paced guy that can get to the lane. But the assist numbers, and this goes for the entire team, because I think every single guy who got significant minutes, it was the most assists in the Bruce Pearl era. The most prior was in 2019 against CSUN. it's hard to look at that and think that this team isn't trending in the right direction and starting to peak a little bit because they're sharing the basketball. That's what Coach Pearl consistently preaches and wants his guys to do, especially those point guards. And we have seen recently where they haven't quite been able to do that. It's not a lack of trying, but sometimes they struggle a little bit. They turn the ball over more than you like. But I think yesterday they played the game extremely well, even in the second half when I don't even know how to describe really between the 16 and 8-minute mark in the second half. It might have been the longest 8-minute stretch I've ever experienced in a basketball game. I swear I kept looking up at the clock expecting there to be 2 minutes left, and there was still 10. So, yeah, I think they handled that game extremely well. And those are the kind of games you're going to get into in the NCAA tournament. Maybe not where you're in the lead like Auburn was yesterday, but it's going to be chippy. There's going to be a lot of whistles blown. And vice versa in the first half when there were no whistles blown whatsoever. We've seen that way too much this year in college basketball, and I think especially with Auburn, where one half is called, I should say, relatively not called, where they let the guys play, they're playing physical, but then in the second half, things get out of control. The officials start calling you everything, and quite frankly, and this is getting on my soapbox about officiating and whatever. I sometimes think, and I feel like this was the case yesterday, if you didn't quite get too much in the way, I don't think it gets as chippy as it would have. Like, you had the guys get into it early or late in the first half, but whatever. They got in the locker room, they settled down. I feel like whenever you start blowing those whistles, guys start getting emotional, they start getting upset. Whereas if you let them play, they're just going to play. So that's my rant on that, because let me tell you, the 16 to 8-minute mark of that second half was ugly. And I really can't blame either of the teams on it, but that's just me.
I mean, it's kind of hard for a game not to get chippy whenever there is an individual named KD Johnson playing against his former team who always plays with that the villain energy whenever it comes to playing against the Georgia Bulldogs. Because at some point, you're no longer – I feel like most Georgia fans probably can't remember that KD Johnson was on that team. Just like, 4 years ago?
Man, it was the COVID season with half-empty arena, so he didn't even get to play in front of full crowds in a Georgia uniform. And, yeah, it feels like such a long time ago that season happened. It was kind of wild talking about the senior day and with Chris Moore and Dylan Cardwell, and I'm probably missing a few other guys. Obviously, Jalen was there before that. Leor was there before that. But those guys that started their careers during the COVID season where it's just – you didn't really get to know them. You saw flashes of what they were about, but it really took until their sophomore years for them to showcase that. We know what Dylan turned into, the ultimate Auburn man, and Chris Moore is one of the most vocal and one of the premier leaders on this team. That's what they were, and it's wild to look back at how it started.
Yeah, just shout out to all these seniors rounding out their last game in Neville Arena. I presume some of them. I feel like some of them might have a sneaky COVID year somewhere mixed in there. But yeah, going back to your earlier point, I guess when I said there's not a real weakness on this team, I may have overlooked the fact that this team fouls so much. And yeah, I think that's the officiating has not been like the premier this year. I think there's definitely been some games where it's been a little soft, I will say. But I mean, you had a tech from KD Johnson yesterday, which pretty huge for KD Johnson. But yeah, Chad Baker-Mazara and Chaney get 4. Yeah, Janai and Dylan get 3. And then after it kind of trickles down after that. But you've just had so many games this year. And I feel like some of them, like I think the KD Johnson, I remember him fouling out against Georgia in Athens, and that's when he really played that villain card thing. Because I remember he just celebrated not going into the bench. But yeah, Janai Broome, he's fouled out before that. You're looking forward, because I'm going to go ahead and just bring up the SEC bracket for the SEC tournament. Auburn is currently they're going to have to wait till Friday to play. They're going to play the winner of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, whoever beats, and the winner of that game for South Carolina. I don't know how exactly to put that.
They will face South Carolina, Vanderbilt, or Arkansas on Friday afternoon.
Thank you. That's why you're a professional and I am not. But looking forward, does this team have everything possible to on their roster to win the SEC tournament outright?
Yeah, I think so, and I do want to clarify one thing about the fouls. Yes, this team fouls a lot, and that is part of what Bruce Pearl teaches and how his defenses always are. They're freaking physical, and they're gonna really make you earn every single point and whatnot. So I'm not blaming the officials for that. I don't like the way games are called one half versus the other. Let's be consistent. That's what's important to me. Continuing on with what this team can do in Nashville, I do think obviously the ceiling is a championship. When you get that top 4 seed, you are in perfect position to do it. Now, it's interesting with the matchups and the way it shaked out because I really did think that Tennessee would beat Kentucky yesterday and Auburn would get that 3 seed and we'd see Auburn play Alabama on Saturday in the semifinals if Auburn could get past Florida, because I thought that was going to be the toughest stretch you could have asked for if you were Auburn, because I really think the difference between Florida at this point, even though they lost to Vanderbilt, and South Carolina, or obviously your Arkansas, your Vanderbilt, or whoever the heck Florida will play in that second round matchup, I think it's a big difference, especially the way Auburn beat those teams. I think someone put it out. Auburn in those 3 games that they played against those teams, beat them by an average of 30 points. Yeah, it's hard not to like the matchup you're getting on Friday, especially when Auburn has not won an SEC tournament game since they won the championship back in 2019. I will say that is a weird – the whole thing about that is that Auburn's only played in 2 tournaments since then because of 2020 getting canceled and the postseason ban in 2021. So 2 straight years after Auburn won the SEC tournament, they did not compete in the and then obviously got the 1 seed in 2022. The Cinderella run by Texas A&M derailed that. And then obviously last year, Auburn finished in the middle of the pack and gotten a really good game with Arkansas, but didn't come out on top. So I think that this year, this is when you could start to complain about that or whatnot. But I think it's a little overblown due to where the Auburn had been before that season. Because everyone says Bruce has only won in 2 years in Nashville, but I mean, yeah, sure. They weren't good before they won the SEC title in 2018, and that is what it is.
Yeah, and this has to be probably the most – you have to be glad that Kentucky beat Tennessee because the draw Auburn got is just that good. I mean, because like you just said, this is 3 teams that Auburn potentially would have to play to where I don't think none of these teams put up a fight. I think Vanderbilt might have had like a little bit of a fight earlier on in some of the games, but after a certain point, Auburn handed it. But you remember the last time Arkansas did Auburn play Arkansas twice this year, or just the one time?
Yep.
And they beat Arkansas so bad that
it was historical.
Yeah, it was historically bad beatdown for the Piggies. But then you have South Carolina, a team that was so hyped up going into that game. At that point, they were were they undefeated in conference play at that point, or they have like 1 loss?
Yeah, I think they had 1 loss, but they were 11th in the nation, and it was a bigger matchup than the game on Saturday, Auburn and Kentucky. Now, billed as that, and sure enough, it didn't turn out to be that at all. Auburn just dominated.
Going over the century mark in that game.
And I do look back at that game. It's interesting because that 3-game stretch, South Carolina, Kentucky, Georgia. You have 2 games on the outside, the bread of the sandwich. You shoot 60+% from the field, from 3, incredible from the free throw line. And right there, the meat is bad and outdated and nasty because Auburn shot less than 30% against Kentucky. What happened? That's what I go back to think about. And the one thing that just, it lives in the back of my mind because Auburn had that performance against Florida as well. But I do think that Auburn's become more consistent since that game. Obviously, Georgia, the Tennessee game, you played out of your mind. Dalton Connect just really took over, and you didn't really have what it took to guard him. And then the last several games, it really hasn't been an issue. And I think it's one of those things that, sure, they talk about the road games and the road woes, whatever. We're playing on neutral floors, boys, now. Like, I trust Auburn on a neutral floor. So that's my takeaway on it. And I do think that this team has what it takes to cut down the nets in a week from now. I mean, I think that's the goal, and that's what this team wants to do. And build some momentum going into the NCAA tournament.
But interesting to talk about the when you brought up that Auburn has only played in 2 SEC tournaments since then. I never pieced that together because I completely forgot about the postseason ban and the 2020 year. I like to forget about that year just in total.
Right.
Just everything about it, from the Iron Bowl to
everything from that. Like I said, when these seniors were going through their ceremonies, and I was just kind of thinking about like everything we've watched. I remember freshman Dylan going wild in front of like 1,000 fans in Neville Arena because of COVID precautions. I remember Simo hitting threes that felt like they touched the ceiling of the arena and thinking, man, this guy could be a sharpshooter for us and all those things. And I thought that literally feels like it was 10 years ago and it was only 4. So yeah, it's one of those things it's wild to put in perspective like that.
And just to round out the men's basketball, I'll finish off with this question. What do you, if the ceiling is, where would you accurately like predict Auburn to finish in this tournament? Like, would you say they win it? Would you say they're out in the first round, or do you think like Tennessee?
In the SEC tournament, it's tough because I think that Tennessee game is going to be an absolute battle. It's going to be a war. I do think that I will say, I think the positive you got is that Tennessee is probably a little bit gassed and is probably prepping for that NCAA tournament run because, hey, you get the regular season championship. And if I'm being honest, I think an SEC regular season championship is a little bit better and more prestigious than a tournament championship. Not to take away from the tournament championships, but that's just how I view it. I really could see Auburn losing on Saturday to Tennessee because I just think that Dalton Connect and that team, they really are. They truly have been the best team in the SEC this year. That's not hard to argue. It is what it is. And I think the way Auburn gets by is doing what Kentucky did yesterday. You play fast. And obviously that didn't really work at Knoxville in Tennessee. But I do think it can work on this neutral floor now that Tennessee's kind of mellowed out. That's the way I view it. Man, that 3-game stretch that they had at Alabama, against Auburn, and at South Carolina, they did look like world beaters. It did not look like anyone was going to compete with them at all. But Kentucky showed that they are vulnerable. They are not invincible, and that's where I think I do think Auburn does get to the championship. And man, it's hard for me not to imagine on the other side of the bracket who comes out of there. Could it be Alabama? If it is, Bridgestone Arena will see an atmosphere it's never seen before. Quite frankly, that's how I view it. And obviously, Auburn and Alabama played in the SEC championship once. It was 1985. Coach Sonny Smith led Auburn to I think it was a 53-52 victory. So I don't know. I like the omens. I like the voodoo around that. So we'll see.
Yeah, you love the craziness that would come up from an Auburn Alabama SEC tournament championship. But yeah, and that Tennessee game, just goes back to Auburn had every aspect to win that game. It's just you cannot beat a guy who just has a career 40 points from Dalton Connect. Like you can't beat that. And for Tennessee to come out of their last 4 games 3-1, that in of itself is so impressive. Beating Auburn, beating Alabama.
It was the toughest stretch they faced all year.
And it was the toughest stretch that anyone's faced all year. I
I find it hard to believe if they needed to win yesterday against Kentucky, they probably would have pulled it out. I feel like, when you celebrate that championship on Wednesday night, there's definitely a bit of a hangover that you feel on Saturday when you come back to all those fans that are celebrating you. You don't mind losing in a great game to a really good Kentucky team.
Yeah, and speaking of SEC tournaments, Auburn women's hoops did take part in their tournament, and they did win their first game since I believe it was 2015, 2016.
Something like that.
Was their last?
It's been a long. It might have been 2019. 2019 seems to be the year that women's basketball did everything last, but it might have been longer for that.
I think it might be 2019. I might just be completely wrong.
2019 is the number that's been used a lot. Last time Auburn women's basketball did this was 2019 for a lot of things. So,
but absolutely demolished Arkansas 67-48. And just a great performance from this entire team yet again. Double-digit performances from, and I got a cough for a second, but I did not pause in time. Sorry about that. Jemiah Mingo Young, Sydney Shaw, and Marshawn Bostic all put up 11 points. You got kind of a quiet night for Moscow Grayson, who only had 6 points. But watching this team win games big without needing honesty to put up 18, 20-plus points, that's what you needed against LSU. That's what you needed against I'm trying to remember. She put 31 points up against someone. I cannot remember who it was. Oh, Lord.
It might have been. I'm trying to think of those late games that they won. They won on that big win 3-game win. It was Texas A&M, maybe.
It might have been Texas A&M. It could have also been Florida. But those games that you just can imagine the honesty took over. But they didn't need them. Didn't need her. For Arkansas, just did everything that they needed to win. Scored 14 fast break points, 31 points off of the bench, 19 points off of turnovers. Defense. This team, this might be the best defensive team in the SEC, or at least one of them.
Right. No, for sure. And I think when you look at the way this team has matched up with Arkansas in the past couple of years, every game has been close, and every time Arkansas has found a way to win it. This go around, Tigers didn't let up. They didn't really make it a game. They did what they had to do, and like you said, I thought it was important for the girls, other than honesty, to get into scoring and really play their games and do what they can. And obviously, Marshawn Bostic, we've seen what she did last year in the WNIT to really carry Auburn to a win and even keep it close against Clemson. She kind of did that same thing against Florida in the regular season finale, and then on Thursday night against Arkansas. So I'm excited. I think 2 other keys: McKenna Eddings and Sydney Shaw. If they can score, look out. I know that's part of the question we're going to get to is, can these teams make a run? I really do think it comes down to those 2.
Yeah, because we did see this team end their run in the SEC tournament to the eventual second place, the runner-up of the SEC tournament in LSU. This was probably the game I was expecting to see the first time Auburn played LSU, because I can't lie, I wasn't the most positive thinking person in the world whenever Auburn first took on LSU. Optimistic. I was like, if Auburn could stay within 10 points in this game, I'm okay with that. But they won that first one, lost the second one very close, and this one came around. And I don't know if it's more, and I know I might just say this, I'm a fan. It might just come down to that. But it felt less like LSU beating down Auburn than it did Auburn was beating down themselves. Didn't shoot well. Nothing really went well for him. Only put up 48 points, and we've seen this team, whenever they do struggle, it's bad. Didn't got out rebounded, which is going to happen against LSU. They're just freaks of nature. Didn't score consistently off the bench. Just nothing went right offensively for this team.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 reasons it's really disappointing because that it happened. I think if you hadn't beat LSU at home and played them within 5 points in Baton Rouge, you probably wouldn't be thinking going into that game, man, Auburn could give them a run for their money. And obviously, the way it started, when you go down 23-0, maybe it's 21. That's obviously that's just it really hurts you, because if you just get off on the right foot, you never know how the rest of the game goes. The rest of the game is dictated by that 21-0 run. It really is as simple as that. I don't know if Auburn would have won had they not started off down 21, but I certainly believe that it would have been a much closer game. It would have been like that game in Baton Rouge had it not gotten out of hand within the first 6 minutes of the game. That's really what it comes down to. And I do think that this team has what it takes, but again, it is some of those lows they hit, and it really bottoms out. So, I hate it, but I mean, that LSU team is good. I mean, you look at what, besides the last 2 minutes where things got out of hand today, that SEC Women's Tournament Championship was a heck of a game. And South Carolina is probably one of the best teams of all time. And LSU really took them to the last 2 minutes, and obviously things got out of control in the last 2 minutes. Who knows what could have happened. Half the teams didn't get ejected. But yeah, so I do think that I don't think it's the worst. So obviously you never want to lose by as many as you did on Friday. But this team was on a 4-game winning streak. They were hot. It was bound to happen. I think it was okay that it happened to the second best team in the SEC, one of the top 10 teams in the country. Now you have time to reset, look at the film, and get ready for whoever they match you up with next Sunday. And obviously you're probably going to be a 10 or 11 seed. I think that's a fine spot to be in. You take down that 7 or that 6 seed, and then from there, let's see if you can knock off a big name. I think that's what you're looking at now.
Yeah, looking at the first quarter of that LSU game, Auburn shot 1 for 17 from the field, 0 for 5 from the 3, and then had 3 points off of free throws.
Right.
So in total, 5 points in that first quarter to LSU's 27. Then if you look at the scoreboard, the 14-16 in LSU's favor in the second quarter. Then got a hand in the third quarter. LSU outscored them by 14, and then Auburn outscored LSU in the fourth quarter. And you're right; it's just that first quarter, and I guess some of the third quarter too. But Auburn's had during the third quarters all season long.
That, and also coming out of the locker room, Auburn's probably just trying to, all right, let's just see what we can do, firing up shots that probably aren't the best, but you've got to put up shots and you got to do it quickly. So, yeah, I look at it as the fact that because the way the first quarter went, it's hard to evaluate the rest of the game. I also think about honestly in the way Arkansas game, not getting as many shots as she'd like and not getting in the flow of the offense, but because everyone else picked her up, it was all right. In this game, obviously, that didn't quite happen. And I do think in the NCAA tournament, you're going to need honesty. You're not going to need 31 points out of her every single game you play, but you're going to need the 15 plus that that she should be giving you every single game.
Yeah, and currently looking at the bracketology right now for Auburn, they are currently in the Albany 1 quad which is South Carolina's projected bracket. So if Auburn were to go on a Cinderella run, I don't like their chances for South Carolina, but I also don't like anybody's chances against South Carolina.
Who are they with first round?
In Corvallis versus Louisville.
Okay, interesting.
So that'd be
Louisville's dropped off a bit since their Final Four run a couple years ago. So
and then if Auburn would win that one, they'd play the winner of Oregon State and California Baptist, which I believe Oregon State has been very, very good.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, yes. There's a reason they be is Auburn listed as an 11 seed?
Yes, Auburn's listed as 11 seed.
There's a reason Oregon State's a 3 seed. So,
and then of course, just to talk Cinderella runs, you have to make it out of whoever wins out of the Ohio State quad.
Mm.
And then you have to take on South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, looking at South Carolina, they just seem unbeatable. It's hard. It's tough to say now. That could change if Auburn does make this magical run. We're optimistically hoping for. Then who knows what things look like that weekend. So,
yeah, and I mean, I think getting one win in the tournament.
Let's be realistic. Yes, you're correct. Auburn's already taken a big step forward. No matter how the rest of this year shakes out, you make the NCAA tournament. That was the goal as soon as that WNIT game against Clemson finished. Was Coach Shea and that coaching staff and those players that were returning. They said we want to make the NCAA tournament. That is our goal. We don't care about this WNIT stuff. We want to be in the big dance, and they did that. That is pretty much a fact at this point. We are about 99.9% sure that Auburn's name will be called on Selection Sunday, and it won't be part of the bubbles. It will be because they are in the tournament. You also win an SEC tournament game. You have your most wins since 2019. Like I said, the 2019 number comes up a lot because that's the last time Auburn made the NCAA tournament. You do a lot of things that you haven't done since that 2019 season. You set crazy attendance records. Obviously, the most people in attendance for a women's basketball game at Neville Arena against LSU, the third most at Alabama, and then you set the season's attendance record with one game to play. So, yeah, it really is an incredible feat that Coach Jay and the staff has completed in a short amount of time. And now you're looking to the future and how can Coach Jay rebuild this roster after this season? You're going to lose your best player in honesty, Scott Grayson, and go from there, because obviously the next step is to be looked at as a contender in the SEC. You finish in the middle of the pack now. Let's see if you can work your way towards getting double byes and then be a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. And it's the trajectory that the men's program took under Coach Pearl, but I think this has been a quicker process.
Yeah, it's so awesome to sit there and watch the women's basketball like fandom rise in Auburn, because I remember I was part of the first ever court storming for Auburn women's basketball when they took down number 4 Tennessee, and I got to watch Target trucked by Dylan Cardwell. That was I don't want to say that was the highlight of the evening, but it definitely was up there in the top 3.
I would say that night was an incredible night. It's one of those things. When people think about their best college memories, they think about your big rivalry football wins, your big rivalry basketball games, or that big upset you had in men's basketball. I mean, we had that in women's basketball, and it was incredible. And I know so many students that were in attendance there that will remember that for a long, long time. And it really started the like you said, the fan growth and everyone buying in to that program. It was the first year under Coach Jay, and she's done a fantastic job since then.
Yeah, and I like how you said it's probably a faster rebuild than Bruce Pearl's. But I remember after the A&M win, we started saying this team's got to be in the tournament, right? And then they beat Mississippi State, and like this team's got to be in the tournament, right? And then they beat Florida, and like this team's got to be in the tournament, right? Because you're just sitting there waiting for some kind of confirmation, and then they get in as a 7 seed, beat the absolute crap out of Arkansas, and you're like, this team made the tournament. This team is in the tournament.
Yeah, I think they made it with the win against Florida. I think they were probably in when they beat Mississippi State, but when you're 7-9, you don't really feel too good about it. So beating Florida actually confirmed it. I think Auburn's resume was good enough that, especially if you had beat Arkansas the same way following the loss of Florida, I think things would have worked out where you would have been like the last team in. But because you beat Florida and then you beat Arkansas, I mean, I have no questions, and it would quite frankly be just a absolute fraudulent if they didn't make it. It would be ridiculous, and it would be something that the committee would have to explain.
Yeah, and I'd be disappointed to even ask the question ceiling and floor for Auburn in the tournament, because floor would imply there's a bad side.
Right.
Making the tournament in year 3 of Coach Jay, this is no matter what it is. Even a win, making the tournament is overachieving in year 3.
Mm-hmm.
Winning a game is balls to the wall crazy in year 3.
Yeah. It'll have to be an upset.
Exactly. It's just awesome to watch happen right before our eyes. But that'll do it for our basketball talks. We do have a question from Leanne Owen. Who would you rather play, Kentucky or Tennessee?
I assume this is referring to the men's bracket. And I think Auburn got in the best position possible. I think right now Tennessee is who I'd rather play. I think Kentucky's kind of heating up at the right time, and there's a lot of trends going their way that makes it look like they're going to win a lot of games this NCAA tournament. This is not going to be the typical Kentucky team that you get to laugh at because they lose to a 15 seed or anything like that. I think that they're going to make a good run coming here in a few weeks, and I think that's the same here in Nashville. And obviously, when you look at the way Auburn matched up with them a few weeks ago, yeah, it was bad shooting by Auburn, but I do think that Kentucky had a really solid defensive game plan that led to a lot of bad shots and Auburn not being able to run its offense. But here's the thing, quite frankly, I know I talked about facing Alabama in the SEC championship. Let's be real, Alabama's not playing its best basketball right now. I think it's going to take a little bit for them to get right, and I don't know they have enough time to get right. This could be an ugly ending for them to this season. You're probably going to have to play both of them if you want to win an SEC championship. You're going to have to beat both of them. So you're going to have to face Tennessee on Saturday and then Kentucky on Sunday. If you want to win the SEC championship, that will tell you what this team is made of. If you can go through that gauntlet, and that's just 2 games, but I find it hard to believe they can't do anything else in the NCAA tournament.
I think out of the two, if I could pick who I wanted to play, like I'd have to play the other one if I picked. Yeah, I'm picking Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be in look ahead mode. Like they're ready for March.
Right?
March
No, yeah. Well, and we look at the way Tennessee has been the last few years in the tournament. Disappointing. They call Rick Barnes, I think, regular season Rick or whatever. I know him and those players that have been there forever. Santiago Vescovi and Zakai Siegler. Those guys that have been there for so long, they're sick of hearing it too. So I do think that they're somewhat mostly – they got the regular season championship. Great. They're ready for the real dance, and that's the NCAA tournament the last 3 weekends of March. So, yeah, I think Tennessee – and I think it's simple to look at the way Auburn played against both these teams. Like, you wouldn't want to play Tennessee again because what are the chances – I say this after he did it again yesterday, but what are the chances Dalton Connect drops another 40 points? Slim, I would say, because I think Auburn would have a much better game plan for that than it did in Knoxville.
The positive part to that is you're not Knoxville.
Exactly. Now, hey, I'll tell you what. Woo, those fans are going to be out in full force this next weekend in Nashville. Quite frankly, just look at the ticket prices. Usually every year, the session that Kentucky's in, that's most expensive. Not the case this year. Yeah,
and because at least one college Tennessee has to fill some seats somehow.
Yeah, I hate it for Jerry Stackhouse, man. I think he's a good coach, and I think that there's I don't know how it all fell apart for Vanderbilt this year because I thought they were trending up after last season. Yes,
yeah, I thought when Tyron Lawrence came back, I thought they were actually going to make some noise.
Well, and how fitting was it for him to hit that game-winning layup yesterday against Florida to go to 4-14 in the SEC?
Yeah,
like, dang. So be it.
And one of the funniest what ifs would be what if Tyron Lawrence had actually transferred to Auburn. But honestly, I don't know how he would have fit with.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to say Auburn like dodged anything because I think Tyron Lawrence, very talented player, would have made Auburn a lot better. But I think the team that Bruce Pearl has right now probably the best version of what a team could have been.
If he would have replaced Denver Jones, I would not take that bet right now. I think that's what you basically you're gambling on. Yeah. It's like, do you think Lawrence would have been better than Denver Jones? I don't know. I don't think so.
Because then you had to get rid of some KD Johnson minutes, and you can't do that. You can't get rid of KD Johnson. But yeah, that'll do it for basketball talk. We'll do my little ad read, and then we'll get into a little bit of football and then diamond sports and gymnastics for the rest of the show. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Ernest, Chris Causey, Leanne, Owen, thank y'all for commenting, and we see y'all over there. But of course, thank you for listening in. If you're listening to audio versions of the show as well, also want to let you know if you have other ways to support the show, you can like, you can comment, you can also subscribe. We're getting so close to 800 subscribers. And also, if you look for other ways to support the show, we have merch. We have wonderful, beautiful t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now. The Feeling Loopy College Loop War Report podcast sponsored or branded t-shirt that comes in 5 different colorways. I'll go to thewarreport.com, go to the shop. Also, the link in the description below. First shirt, or not the first shirt, but it's on the first page of the shop. Only $25, most comfortable shirt you're ever going to wear in your entire life. Don't think I can get one made in green for St. Patrick's Day, but don't worry. This thing fits every other formal event and holiday. So get your own Feeling Loopy shirt today. And with that, Auburn football. Spring practice still going on, but not really heard a lot outside of people are very excited about Cam Coleman. Just very, very excited about Cam Coleman.
Hard not to be.
But professionally, I heard a couple of news tidbits about Auburn football players, starting off with some positive news, depending on what fan base you root for. Daniel Thomas has re-signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, former 5th-round pick, very underrated safety, I think, in Auburn football memory. I don't think Daniel Thomas gets enough credit for the leadership he added to that defense. I want to say back in 2016. I want to say 2017, 2016.
A little later, yeah.
Yeah. So huge ups to him, re-signing with the Jags, stepped up as a 5th-round pick, and has just been a solid part of their secondary. And they keep it in the secondary, and me and you can be very excited about this. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Panthers fans, they might be trading Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean.
See, the only reason I would hate it is because I like the Auburn backfield, like the Auburn defensive backfield. I think that's cool. But yeah, you're correct. And also, like, even as a Panther fan, at least when they get interceptions against our team, it is Auburn off of Alabama. But yeah, we'll stop right there.
Until you look at it and you're like, oh, that's my quarterback.
Yeah, no, yeah. I have very much like dealt with the fact that he is our quarterback, and I'm okay with it. I do think he has a decent ceiling, and he can figure it out if he gets a little bit of help. Maybe let's go with that.
Yeah, hopefully a different coach will help. I turn to the Alabama podcast. Separating the college from the professional there. Yeah, I really hope Bryce Young gets the help he needs, but I will ignore he's from Alabama.
And I do think, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, though, I think that they both are going to be valued high. So whatever the Bucks give up, or whenever they give them up, they're going to get something in return. And I'd be interested because that's one of the more underrated position groups that Auburn's had this past decade is the defensive backfield. You look at those two guys. Jonathan Jones is a Super Bowl champion. Daniel Thomas, you just mentioned. And there's other guys out there.
Rudy Ford, I think doesn't get enough credit on the Packers.
Great career for him. It's one of those things. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they're DBU or anything, but it has been a consistent professional development system for these guys. And I think that continues this year. Jalen Simpson, DJ James, Nehemiah Pritchett ran one of the fastest 40-yard dashes at the NFL Combine. Those guys are going to get their shots, and I think that they'll be prepared for it.
I think you can make an argument at Auburn, not the DBU, but definitely, I would say they make an argument for top 5. I think there's enough solid ones in there because if you go back further, you have Carlos Rogers, you have Gerard Powers, of course you have a few other guys. I'm trying to think of everybody. You have Nico Thorpe, who's a Pro Bowler, for the Seahawks. Like, you're
talking me into it. Now you're talking me into it. All right, fine. Auburn's DBU. Now, you heard it here first. College Luke.
Don't worry. First game we play against Texas. Make sure to get the DBU shirts out. Just kind of parade that around. And then talking about former Auburn players, talking about maybe a potential future Auburn Tiger, Tarvaris Dice, 4-star offensive tackle, class of 2025. He's been crystal balled to Auburn before. He's 6'4", 282 pounds. Just absolutely massive human being who, at that size, you can probably assume how he plays. He likes to bully the defensive ends in front of him. He came out and he's talked about the fact that Auburn currently the number 1 spot on his board right now. And Auburn adding a lot of depth in the trenches for the class 2025, and it's so nice. I love Gus. I love Gus to death. I was upset when he got fired when it happened because I understood why it happened. He never really recruited offensive line talent. One of his best offensive linemen was an edge rusher who converted to offensive tackle.
You're not wrong about that, and it really is something that it's interesting how this is going to trend this year, because I think when you look at the Auburn offensive line as it stands, it's a lot of experience, some fresh blood that has a lot of talent. What can they prove this year? And I think that leads a lot to the recruiting success that Jake Thornton's already had some of, and I think he's done a great job with coaching this unit as well. I think that could be one of the first dominoes to fall for consistent offensive line recruiting out of high school, and you're not going to have to rely on all these portal guys. Connor Lew could be the first that is a Hugh Freeze offensive lineman that really shows, all right, he's developing these guys, and obviously credit to Jake Thornton again. That's what I think is the next step for this program and this team as you want to be long-standing at the top of the SEC.
And of course, this is a recruiting class that Tarvaris Dice only jumps Auburn up to the 6th spot in the 2025 rankings. But with the amount
top 6 class, man, gosh, that hurts.
Yeah, such a failure. Only get a top 6 class this early on. I can't believe it. That sucks. But looking at this class as a whole and looking at what it can be, I don't know off the top of my head what the highest Auburn's ever been ranked in the 24/7 polls. But honestly, looking at it, barring anything detrimental happening, but with like the upgrades from JJ Falk and I'm trying to remember all the Blake Autry and Jordan Crawford getting those upgrades to those higher 4 stars. This Auburn class, we talk about this class 2024 so much. We love the class 2024. 2025 class could be the highest ranked class in Auburn football history.
Yeah, and I can't talk. I haven't looked at it enough to talk particulars about it and any of the targets that Auburn's made so far. But what I can say is that it's clear that this is the one that Coach Freeze and this staff has targeted as, all right, this has got to be the one we hit on. It's got to be the one that brings the most buzz and hype to this program. And then obviously has to be the one that succeeds and executes and follows the plan that is set forth for them. And hopefully it brings Auburn to SEC championships as well as the college football playoff and eventually national championship or championships. That really is the way that these guys are looking at it, I think, because obviously coming off the recruiting cycles that we have before this past season, it's been tough for this coaching staff to really figure out the pieces that have been moved around, because obviously guys have transferred out and it's been tough to fill those voids. So
yeah, and class 2023, I would say, I want to say class 24, but I'm going to say class 23 laid the foundation. But this 24 class, 25 class, those are your building blocks. This is you are setting yourself up. You are building your program up with Cam Coleman, with Malik Autry in class 2025, who Malik Autry might be one of the top defensive linemen we've ever seen, because that dude is a monster. And having that little brother to brother connection with Keldrick being the older one and Jacob coming in later on, that'll be a lot of fun to watch for a year.
Right.
Keldrick gets drafted as a junior because that's going to happen. Not because I want it to happen. I mean, I want it to happen.
Listen, I think very good things are in Auburn football's future. Keldrick Falk is getting drafted as a junior and very high in an NFL draft. So I'm all for it.
But yeah, huge ups to Hugh Freeze for getting Auburn this hyped up about recruiting, especially recruiting in March.
Good point.
Because as someone who is heavily into recruiting news, it is a cult, and you got to be engraved in it.
That's part of why I don't worry about it. Like those June and July, those camps that they have and where they host everyone to Big Cat weekends. Pay attention then. I'll take a little bit of a breather and I'll get back into it a month before signing day.
Which signing day, I believe, is moving. Which I don't know if
I can't keep up. Whenever the heck it is, they'll post about it. One signing day, fine. I'll go check out our class.
I believe it's signing day is going to be the week of this. It's like the championship weekend, like the conference championship weekend, and then they're going to have another signing day, I think, in March. February.
That sounds like a complete disaster to have the first signing day the week of the conference championships. Seeing guys commit and sign with schools and then a coach jump somewhere else, that's where I'm saying, like, this is what causes a lot of friction and issues and everything. That's only going to increase when they're signing earlier. And I get that these guys are supposed to be the ones that are going to this school. It doesn't matter who the heck the coach is or whatnot. But let's be real. That plays a major role into these guys' decision, as it should.
I think, honestly, because I can't exactly remember where exactly the national championship falls for next year.
Oh, you're right.
Playoff.
January 20th. It's January 20th.
I think you should make signing day like the second week of February. You give everybody time to leave wherever they're coaching, and you give all these recruits time to – because it sucks to watch guys who've been recruited to schools, and I'm only saying this not because I think highly of this school, but Julian Sayin, he signed with Alabama, and then Nick Saban left. So what did he do? He released his he got off of his NLI. That sucks to watch happen. And because I say that because I know if it happened to an Auburn recruit, I would say that sucks. I hate that it happened. I understand why, because I think more people than not want to play for Nick Saban. I mean, I might want to play with Nick Saban. I wouldn't want to wear the colors.
Well, and look at it this way. It would, in the way it works out is exactly the way Ryan Williams' recruitment worked out. He decommitted that day, and then obviously ended up back with Alabama. He evaluated his options, and it kind of just like it didn't hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. It played out. He made his decision, and he made it final. He didn't have to get released from a national letter of intent or anything like that. He just did his recruitment as normal.
Yeah, it's really funny to watch happen to some schools, though, I will say. But Diamond Sports, Auburn Baseball took on Austin Peay this weekend and clinched the weekend today, actually, with I can only call this what I see it, a shellacking, because that's my favorite word to say. Auburn run-ruled Austin Peay in Game 3, 24-5, and true freshman Cam Tilley continuing to show out, earning a win in this contest. But Cooper McMurray, I have to say, probably the storyline of the day. Yeah. 4 for 4, 3 runs, had a home run, just 3 absolute monster performance.
Yeah,
monster performance from Cooper McMurray.
I think it's the most important thing worth noting is this is coming off a 15-6 loss to this Austin Peay team. This was a massive response by this baseball team. And this has been a crazy series. On Friday, Auburn won on a walk-off. It was trailing going into the 8th inning. Christian Hall hit one over the Performance Center. Mason Manners almost equaled that distance in the 9th to walk it off. And then the next day, you just get manhandled. And I'm sure you saw Coach Thompson's comments after the game that he said that was one of the worst games he's been a part of. Auburn responded and made its presence felt and let everyone know that Saturday was the anomaly. And Austin Peay is a good team. Austin Peay is a good team. It has the hit. I mean, that home run that they hit here's another thing. Auburn started this game off down 2-0. I can't recall his name for Austin Peay, but it's number 2 hitter.
Miller Green.
Yeah, Miller Green. He is an incredible player. He plays right field. He pitches for him, and he hit about a 500-foot home run in the first inning today off of Christian Herbert-Holz. But after that, Christian Herbert-Holz settled in for his 3 or so innings of work, and then Cam Tilley came in and really shut the door for Auburn as the offense just exploded for 3 touchdowns and a field goal. There is nothing to be upset about this weekend with Auburn baseball, because I think it's more important that they responded to that adversity from yesterday than it would have been if you got a 6-2 win yesterday.
And I think it's worth noting, too, the Austin Peay, not a pushover. Is that not a pushover at all? This is the team that has beaten Mississippi State. Yeah, they've taken down.
They're 11-4. They're 11-4 this year. It's a good record.
And it doesn't help that Auburn had a as Bush Thompson got it right. This was an embarrassing night on the mound too on Saturday. Carson Myers gave up 4 runs. Dylan Watts gave up 3. Cameron Keyshaw gave up 3, and Connor Keplinger gave up 3. It was just not a great night on the mound for Auburn on Saturday. But Friday, you came back and won, and then today, good Lord, honestly. When do you start talking about getting Cam Tilley a start?
Yeah, no, I think that's very possibly the next step. Now, like I said, it probably doesn't look as great because of the way he gave up that home run to start the game. But I think Christian Herbert-Holz also has a stake in that. But here's the thing: Joseph Gonzalez he needs to get right. That's the most important thing. He still has the talent. That sinker ball is still as good as ever, but he's just having some control issues, and Coach Thompson and his staff want to get that under control before they throw him out to the wolves of SEC play next week and the week after are critical, and they're going to be tough games. I think that this is a point where Auburn wants to try and actually be in contention for an SEC championship potentially, and those first 2 weekends are going to tell you a lot. And you got to be ready for them. So I think that starting rotation is going to work itself out. We know what Chase also can do. Sure, my heart yesterday, but I do think that he has the ability to do what he's done the first 4 weeks of the season more consistently down the line than what he did yesterday. So it's all about finding that third starter and who it's going to be. And yeah, it could be Cam Tilley, it could be Christian Herberholz, and it could be Joseph Gonzalez. I think whoever it is, I trust this coaching staff to make the right decision. They're not going to put they're going to make sure that we're given the best ability to win.
And we talk about just watching what BP did and Coach Jay about their additions through the portal and recruiting in general. The additions this team made over the offseason, I mean, Cooper Weiss, Carson Myers has had plenty of games where he has just looked on it. Derek Fabian, just all of these guys have just, and there's so many more.
Well, yeah, you did. Like I said, the two guys that won you the game on Friday, Christian Hall from UAB, Mason Manners from Jacksonville State. Like it's crazy to think about how much success Auburn's already found in the transfer portal just in the non-conference portion of play. Derek Fabian is one home run away from tripling his home run output last year at Florida. That's crazy to think about. Cooper Weiss is stealing bases at a rate that we haven't quite seen in a while for an Auburn player. And he's also hitting home runs. That's big time in that leadoff role that he's kind of taken right now. And obviously the return guys, Ike Irish, Cooper McMurray, Bobby Pierce. He that's another key into this weekend. Bobby Pierce didn't play yesterday or today. He was sick and he should be fine, but he was out. So those guys are returning. Chris Stanfield, I think he's kind of struggling right now, but I have all the faith in the world that he will get back into it. He's playing a great center field. So you got all these pieces. It's all about cleaning up what you struggled with on Saturday. That was defensive miscues. There were a lot of errors in that game, and really just pitching consistently. That's what it is. This offense will come along and do its thing whenever it needs to.
Yeah, and like you said, it's so awesome watching how this team meshes together because you said like Irish, Chris Stanfield, and the bullpen. I mean, it's not a bullpen that's going to be completely emptied out at the end of the season. I mean, there's a lot of juniors on this team that pitch because, I mean, Chase Alsop is a junior. Joseph Gonzalez is a junior. Drew Nelson is, I believe, a sophomore. I think, and Will Cannon is junior. John Armstrong is a junior. Like there are so many. There's again, just not naming a lot of them because it just goes so deep.
Right, and I think this bullpen is also light years ahead of where it was last year. We remember last year what happened. It felt like every Sunday was what happened yesterday. Yesterday was different than what occurred on Sundays last year, where you went into the game just knowing what was inevitable, and that was some kind of big inning from the other team. That was going to happen, and that everyone has stepped up their game. That's made a return and is really looking like a key guy that can that can make their noise felt throughout the season.
Yeah, and this team has every inkling to be one of the best teams in the SEC. It's just cleaning up the stupid stuff, the things that you can't help most of the time. You have a nice little midweek against an in-state opponent in Troy. Before, and I'm trying to make sure I don't get this wrong, before you travel to Vanderbilt for your first weekend series versus the SEC. And of course, after that, it's just SEC all the way down, and some nice little in-state, and then of course you have the Georgia Tech games, which I am already dreading ahead of time. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, no, don't overlook Troy on Tuesday. That's a really good ball club right now. I can't remember his name, but they have a guy. He's nicknamed the Meat Man. That's what I know of him. He hit 3 home runs in their game yesterday. So this Troy team has won this year. They've won. I think they won a big series and whatever. That'll be a good midweek game. But then obviously at Vanderbilt, that is going to be that's going to be you're going to figure it out
right then and there to start SEC play, whether you're ready to go for SEC play or not, because that Vanderbilt team is one of the best in the country. They had a bad opening weekend loss, but since then have really been stellar. So again, and also, like I said, next weekend in Nashville, if you're not there, you're missing out. Baseball, men's basketball, gymnastics. And you can, because of the way the schedule shaped out, Friday, you can go to the men's basketball game and the baseball game at night. Then Saturday, hopefully men's basketball is going to the semifinals, go to that game in the afternoon, and then you go to the gymnastics meet Saturday night. And then Sunday, hopefully you're going to the men's basketball SEC championship, but if you're not, then you're going to the game 3 of the Auburn and Vanderbilt baseball series. So, yeah, if you're looking for an excuse to go to Nashville, Auburn Athletics is your reason. I think the Auburn Nashville Club, the Alumni Association up there, is deeming it Gymnastics weekend. So there you go.
The Auburn North Campus, as you will.
Right.
But just to move on from baseball to softball, and you said baseball, or Troy baseball had a big series when they beat Indiana.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Indiana was ranked.
They took Alabama down to the wire.
Yeah, Indiana was ranked.
So Troy and softball too, no slouch. Troy on the diamonds, just no slouch at all.
They are, yeah.
But Auburn softball escaped the sweep versus the Missouri Tigers after a very rare performance from Maddie Penta on Friday, and then just started off just not so good on Saturday. But turn it around the day. You got Amelia Leck to help for that, who helped with 3 of the runs out of the shutout win.
Yeah, and I look at this series obviously as one that, when you look at Missouri, you don't think of their baseball or softball teams being very good. That might be true of their baseball team, but softball team's ranked 12th in the country. So salvaging the game was very and ultra important, even for many reasons. But yeah, the first 2 games were uncharacteristic, especially for Maddie Penta. Now, I will say, I also feel like it was just 2 swings of the bat that did Auburn in that Friday game with Maddie pitching. And then Saturday, it was obviously the lack of offense. But Auburn found that offense on Sunday, and I thought it was a great response. I think it was 10 hits at the game, and you scored across multiple innings. You did what you needed to do to win a game, especially against a top 12 opponent on the road. Now, you look back at the other games, Friday, only 2 hits. But I mean, I would look at Saturday. I mean, I think it was 8 hits still. It was only 5 hits, but you just got to put those runs across and really do it consistently. And the 2 runs that Auburn scored on Friday were 1 inning. Just that was the only damage Auburn did. You got to put pressure on these defenses. You got to put pressure on these pitchers to really to feel it from this offense that they are a threat every single inning. Not they're going to give you a 2-run, 3-run burst and that's it, and you can rely on your offense to just do enough. And Auburn was facing Lauren Krings, who is one of the most veteran pitchers in the SEC. She's been in Missouri for a while, and she's been a really good one. So, yeah, you were in a tough spot. Start SEC play in the cold at Missouri. A Missouri team that's ranked 12th in the nation and has a lot of leadership and veteran leadership. So, yeah, I think overall you did this is what was expected of Auburn. You get one, and you had a chance on Friday, but one big swing at the bat really did you in.
Yeah, and you saw a lot. I will say a lot of good things were taken from the Saturday game too. I mean, you saw Shelby Lowe at her highest. AB did not have the best day. She got 5 runs in her inning that she was able to pitch, but Shelby Lowe came in for 3 innings and just shut it down. Just only gave up 1 hit in 3 innings, had 2 strikeouts, and just did exactly what you needed Shelby Lowe to do. And this bullpen, you got Maddie Penta, who you can always rely on. That she's the National Pitcher of the Week, SEC Pitcher of the Week, probably
SEC Pitcher of the Year,
SEC Pitcher of the Year, and arguably probably the best pitcher Auburn has ever had. In general,
she is now 1 win away from owning the wins record in Auburn history.
And I believe she's like 2 or 3 everything away from being the leader in every other statistic.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and she has plenty of season left to get that. And this team still has plenty of – this team has a lot of improvements to make, but this team, I think, does have the talent to make it, to make some to do some damage. I think this team's got to finish top 5 in the SEC. I still feel fairly confident in that. Missouri's just that good. Well, this is the first win Auburn's had at Missouri, or is it at Missouri since 2015, or was it versus Missouri since 2015?
Yeah, I think it's at Missouri because I think the series history is relatively even, and last year Auburn faced Missouri at home and won. But yeah, I think at Missouri it's been a while.
Yeah, and it's same thing as baseball, but baseball's just had a little more success with it as of recent, just getting everything working together at the same time.
Right.
You got to get consistent hits. Amelia Larck had a great game today. Great game. Home run and
2
home runs.
Yep.
Yeah, just one just 3 RBIs and just, you got to add to it.
And I look at what her and Anna Wohlers, they're the 2 transfers. They are hitting in the 3-4 spot. So they're kind of the anchors right now of what needs to carry this offense into the next level. Because at the top of the lineup, you've got KK McCrary, Michaela Packer, Nelia Peralta, just depending on what the lineup looks like. And they have really, I feel like they've done their job in the non-conference. And then Anna Wohlers and Amelia Larck have shown their flashes, and they've shown it. But it also feels like they've done it on their own. Whereas, again, it's all about passing the baton. And this is something I think it was Michaela. We spoke with her after her walk-off grand slam against USC Upstate. So, Coach Carasone always preaching, pass the baton, pass the baton. That's what it's all about. And eventually the runs come. So I think it's finding that groove in SEC play that will take Auburn to the next step and hopefully winning series like that when you have the chance.
Yeah, and huge up Michaela Packer. Talking about records, I believe she's 2 triples away from tying the all-time Auburn record for that.
Yeah, man, I hate that she's dealt with injuries these past 2 seasons because she would be destroying the stolen base record. That probably would have happened last year if it weren't for those injuries. But she would have to go on a historical run, literally, if she was going to break the stolen bases record. She is second in Auburn history in stolen base percentage. So if she can stay efficient, then there you go. There's something to go after.
It is crazy how a double to her can turn into, or sometimes even a single. She's just that fast.
I'll tell you what, man. When I'm calling those games and as she hits one to the wall, by the time the ball hits the wall and I check where she is, she's like rounding second base, and it's insane. Like if she hits it high enough and it's not hit or gets to the ground quick enough, by the time the fielder gets to it, it can be dangerous for him.
It's crazy that Auburn has two runners like that with her and Abby Smith.
Right. And that's the thing. Abby Smith, best pinch runner that you could possibly have. She's smart too. She's a smart runner.
And Auburn Softball, no midweek this week. We got 5 days to prepare for Arkansas, who is really, really good this year. Their first baseman, I've heard, is really good.
Auburn fans will be familiar.
Yeah, she hits the ball good. If you don't know who she is, her name is Bree Ellis. She is alive and well in Fayetteville. She's having what could be a career year for her. She'll be the player to watch this Auburn defense play against throughout the weekend. I'm going to try to go to at least one of these games just because I absolutely love softball and I've not been to one yet. But I'm going to be at one of these because we got some ties to Bree Ellis on the show. We got some ties, and of course, there to cover Auburn as well.
I just hate that this series is happening this upcoming weekend when like I mentioned already, Nashville will be the place to be. Like that's where I'll be assisting with men's basketball coverage. But man, I wish I would love to be at JV Moore Field for this one because Maddie Pinto versus Bree Ellis. That's a heck of a matchup. And
these are fairy tales we've heard from like practices. We've not ever seen this actually happen.
Right. And I really think that this is also just a big monumental series as far as the teams go. Arkansas is, like you said, one of the best in the SEC. Auburn has to prove it on their home turf that they're here to compete in the SEC.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch that happen. We'll have plenty of previews for that throughout the week because that is going to be, alongside all the other awesome Auburn things going on with Auburn athletics, that is probably one of the biggest storylines is Bree Ellis versus Auburn.
The good thing is it's the one thing going on campus, so you got that to look forward to. Where that is the highlight if you're still in Auburn.
Yeah, and especially if the Ellises decide to stop by.
I can't imagine they won't. They made friends in Auburn. And when you love Auburn, Auburn will love you back. It's everything that's been said about Auburn. It's true even when you transfer to a rival school.
Look at Bo Nix. Bo Nix still gets gets plenty of love from Auburn fans. So much so that I think a lot of Auburn fans are going to try to claim him whenever he is in the NFL.
We'll see.
And then lastly on the docket for today, gymnastics had their 2024 podium challenge against the number 3 team in the country, LSU, who was the only team to outscore them. Also went against George Washington and Texas Women's. And this meet, pretty much the same meet stuff as always whenever Auburn doesn't prevail. That daggum vault always does it. It always does it.
Well, and most importantly, this is preventing this team from improving its national qualifying score. Auburn, it was going to be tough to beat LSU when they put up the score they put up. I think 198.5.
197.05. Or
LSU score.
Yeah, 198.5.
Yeah, you're not making up for that on one event. That is what it is. They're one of the best teams in the nation. But this is all about you and improving that national qualifying score where you can try to get in the top 10 of the nation. And Auburn had a great chance to do that these past 2 weekends at Georgia and at that quad meet in Baton Rouge. And you raised it a little bit, but it's not gonna move you off that, I think, 12 line that Auburn's on, maybe 14 line that Auburn's on right now currently. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's something Coach Graves talked about, and he loves the strength that you have on floor, but you can't keep tripping up on vault. You've got to make sure that you're more consistent and your floor, the floor on vault raises a little bit because I think there's just too many scores that you can't count, that you're having to count. So that's the issue right now.
Yeah, because vault had the lowest score, 49.025. Bars actually had the second worst, 49.125.
Yeah, that's
okay. Yeah. And then you had a 49.425 and a 49.475 on beam and floor. It's all about just putting your best foot forward and having your best performances.
Overall, this team has a lot of talent and potential. It really does take it all coming together. And I really think that we haven't seen that this year. Maybe in the Alabama meet, but
yeah,
that would probably be the only time this year where we've seen it all together, and it worked nicely for Auburn.
Yeah, that meet, I was there for that one. That one was awesome as well. So huge shout out to that meet because doing Rammer Jammer will always reverse Rammer Jammer will always be my favorite thing ever.
We had a nice 2-3 week run reverse Rammer Jammer in Neville Arena. Women's basketball got it started, and then gymnastics and men's basketball followed in the same week.
I got to teach my girlfriend reverse Rammer Jammer, which was an awesome moment.
That's one of the things that whenever you have children, that's what you look forward to teaching them is that and that first time they get to experience it.
And it's all up to Auburn to make sure that I will be able to teach my kids reverse Rammer Jammer.
That's a good point.
But yeah, Auburn Gymnastics will be back in action as Hillman said already in Nashville for the Kidney Care Women's Gymnastics Championships, which I'm not too familiar with the names. What championship is this for? Is this like is qualifiers? Really?
So no, yeah, so it's interesting the way this year has been different as far as the scheduling has gone. I think for gymnastics because you look who's in this quad in this quad meet. There's 2 sessions to it. Fisk and Talladega are both involved, and it's something that these coaches and these schools are helping out these programs get off the ground so they can really get their feet wet in collegiate gymnastics, because there's something about the way they can't qualify or they can't technically be ranked yet. They have to compete in quad meets. So these schools are helping them out until, one, hopefully they change that kind of rule, and to just help them get off the ground, get all that experience and whatnot. But it's great for the other schools and the fans, because one of the squad meets taking place in Nashville the same week that Auburn's playing basketball and baseball. It's just down the road from Kentucky, who Auburn's competing against, and they're also in Nashville for the men's basketball tournament. And then Ohio State's just a little further than that. So yeah, I think, I'm not sure who's in the other session, but it's just a cool event with 8 teams in it.
Yeah, and it's Fisk is the last team that's going to be in Auburn's quad meet.
Right.
But yeah, huge ups to everyone who's going to be in Nashville. Let us know if you're going to be in the Auburn Gauntlet Nashville edition.
Ooh, it is going to be something, because like I said, it's nonstop action the entire weekend. There is not a time. It's early Friday, late Saturday, or early Friday, late Friday, early Saturday, late Saturday, and then Sunday you have action going on. So you can literally just hopefully you can take off work or school and get up there for that Friday afternoon game. And then after Sunday's done, after hopefully the confetti falls on the Tigers in Bridgestone Arena, you can head back down to Auburn or wherever you are and get back to work.
And Saturday you might be able to watch all games at once, because the gym meets are going to be on YouTube. So
yes.
You put I'm assuming YouTube TV, or just straight up it's YouTube live stream.
I think it's a YouTube live stream. It's kind of like the Super 16 back in Las Vegas, the first week of the year that Auburn's starting to compete in every year.
Sweet. So if you got YouTube, which is free, which
I was going to say, yeah.
If you're watching this right now, then you have YouTube.
Exactly. You're halfway there.
And it'll give you a nice little chance to watch Auburn Gymnastics if you've not been able to this year, because if you've not been to a gym meet yet, you're flat out missing out. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But that'll do it for the show today.
One of the more fun events on campus, and especially if you have younger children. Yeah, I mean that it is a place to be, and that's not just children. I think everyone can have a good time at a gymnastics meet.
Oh, yes, they can. But that'll do it for the show today. Hillman, you want to let everybody know where they can love you, find you, and support you?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Jacob Hillman AU. I'll be with Andy Burcham and Randall Dickey this weekend in Nashville for Auburn Sports Network coverage of Auburn in the SEC tournament. Obviously, we're scheduled to play on Friday afternoon in the second game of the first session. So I think the approximate tip time is maybe 2:30. So
that's 25 minutes after the first game.
Yeah. So I think we'll go on the air at 2:00, and we'll have your coverage there all weekend long, and then into the NCAA tournament. So excited for that, and excited to be in Nashville.
And of course, I'm Dylan Larck, @boytang on Twitter. Also have Instagram as well at Dylan Larck at DYLNLARCK. Visual aids right here if you need all of that. Of course, if you want to look for me anywhere else, you have in the College Loop, which is right here. Which like, comment, and subscribe. Also have us on the audio versions of the show as well on Spotify, Podcast, and Amazon Music. Social medias, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. All of those at the College Loop. Visual aid right above Hillman's head over there. And, of course, links in the description below for all of that we've said already. But all that being said, thank you all for tuning in. And this has been the College Loop Podcast. Thanks for watching. And I got to find the outro.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.